happy 2021. This is Tampa Home Talk, and I'm your host, Katrina Madewell, hanging out with my sidekicks. Good morning.
What? Good to be back in the studio now that it's all Lysoled and Cloroxed and bleached and ammonia and vinegared.
Yes.
Mr.
Happy New Year's as well.
Happy New Year to you, Mr. Leo Kane, and of course Adam Talley, and we got Ray Hall hanging with us this hour.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
Good.
Great.
So you know what we haven't done in so long, because our shows have been pre-recorded and we've been a little out of the studio for several weeks, is our market reports. And I'm looking at these numbers. You'll have so much fun with this, Ray, thinking, are we going to get down to like a 1 month absorption rate? Because it's kind of feeling like we are. I mean, when we look at this week's numbers, and again, Ray, for our data, we are pulling active listings. We're pulling everything,
okay,
but we're pulling just single family. We don't include like condos or townhomes or mobile homes or anything like that. It's just single family for our numbers. And we pull 3 counties. So we're looking at Hillsborough, Pasco, and Pinellas. All 3 counties every single week. And so the number of active new listings this morning that were on the market was 792. The number of sold listings is 852. Mind you, we just came off of like the Christmas era here, so we could see a little dip in the future, the actual week of Christmas when that comes into play. Mm-hmm. And then pending sales, 1,285.
Yep.
So stuff's still hopping off the market. And have you had a peek at our absorption rate lately, or how often do you look at this as an appraiser, or do you even look at this?
Well, I do, but when I look at an absorption rate, I'm going into the specific, it has to do with the specific neighborhood I'm doing. So I'm marking off that neighborhood, and then there's a form in an appraisal called a 1004 MC. Mm-hmm. And it takes all the calculations from that neighborhood, and it has that absorption rate.
So,
which is
what do you define as a neighborhood though? Like a subdivision?
Well, let's explain absorption rate.
What kind of radius are you looking at?
It all depends.
Okay.
Let's say they're near a wastewater treatment plant. You open the window, and when the air is clean, that's your neighborhood.
Well, I mean, if you're doing a 1 acre tract, right? You're not in a subdivision. now you could be in a 5 mile radius.
I've had to go out. I had to do a house. It was up Newport Richie. It was 8,000 square feet. Had a helipad. Had all this stuff. I was 25 miles away.
Well, when you think about that in general, right? Like appraisers typically are pulling like a radius. Mm-hmm. You got no properties to the left, buddy. That's all the Gulf of Mexico.
Right.
So basically, that's not happening. So you would have to go out further. That would make sense.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about some of the things. And I mean, we're seeing a ton of, I have to get that site, but I was looking at one and it tracks a lot of the IRS data, like on where people are filing and like where they're moving to. Mm-hmm. And it's something like as money moves or something like that. And basically what it does is it shows like where people are moving from and where they're moving to. Mm-hmm. And basically on there, it's tracking like where people are moving from and where the wealth is going and by how much. And so it's pretty cool because the data is the same as what I say all the time. The 3 biggest states that relocate here to the area very often are California, New York, and Massachusetts.
Exactly, because they have high state taxes. And right now, I mean, I was just in Massachusetts. It's not as shut down. But you do have New York where, I mean...
everything's shut down.
It's a ghost
California
town.
Too.
California, I just had a friend come back from California, and she said it's a ghost town. You can't go anywhere or do anything.
So I've got a lot of friends that live in California. One of them posted something on Facebook where she was literally just out for her morning run. I'm surprised they're allowed to do that, but they are. Mm-hmm. And she like tripped somehow over a little like raise or something in the sidewalk. And the people that lived in the house came outside to see if she was okay. It was just kind of like a nice neighborly thing to do. And, she had kind of bloodied up her hand and stuff. So they were just bandaging her up and being nice. Mm-hmm. And the neighbor across the street comes out to see what's going on. And she's like, oh, I just, I had, it was already embarrassing enough, right? Like she didn't want to talk about it. She's like, I had this little trip and, the neighbors were just being nice and they were bandaging me up. I'm on my morning run and about to take off. And she said, she looks at her and she goes, where is your mask?
and
like, it's pretty, it's just a different climate there.
Massachusetts, same thing. As soon as you walk out of your house, you have to have that mask on.
Yeah.
So as the Florida guy, I was getting dirty looks up there because I would forget all the time.
I'm very thankful that we live in the state that we live in.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we're getting so many people move here. It's so free, and I'm glad our governor is not shutting stuff down.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely.
Really, I think it's a smart thing to do. Any take on that, Leo? Or you're like, just laughing at me because I had ink all over my hand? I saw you.
I was just wondering what was happening here. It looked like you were taking a bath in alcohol.
I don't know what happened with this pen, but
You need to just throw this
I had
pen
ink everywhere
on
in the
ground.
trash.
Yeah.
That's not the
Okay.
trash, but that'll work.
Oh, I was like, you're taking a bath over here. But yeah, I mean, the mask thing, it was interesting because I just traveled to Belize and came back, and other places take it so much more seriously than Florida.
Yeah.
But
Not
at this-
that we don't, but they just think it's stupid to shut our economy down.
Yeah, and it's weird because if you go to different areas in Florida, there's different levels of taking it seriously. Because
Yeah.
Tampa and Miami are taking it way more seriously than a Daytona or a Villages or
Oh, yeah.
Palatka. So
Oh, and if you go like to some of those rural areas, like I made a trip up there with my husband to pick something up, they look at you like you're from Mars if you walk out of the truck with a mask on. They're
yeah.
like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, I would, because I'm in 20 houses a week, so I just keep it in my pocket. And if they come to the door with a mask on, I forgot to put mine on. Sorry.
How's the take? What I'm seeing, Ray, is most people like when we go to their property, they're like they don't wear masks. Most of them do not.
They don't.
not anymore.
I had an older lady. I was at her house the other night, and she came to the window and asked me to put a mask on.
Okay.
So I'll comply.
Well,
That's
I mean
fine.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
and it does. Most people, I get to the house, and now I have had one person make me put on a full PPE outfit. Yeah, I had to wear.
You have to comply and do that, yeah? Wow.
I had to wear gloves, the PPE, the mask, and she had every door and window open and refused to be in the house while I was in there.
Okay, well, that's
Maybe she had a condition or something,
Yeah.
you know?
Thank goodness you're in and out. Like, you're not there long, so.
No, I mean, I've got my process down where I'm usually out in about 15, 20 minutes, so I'm
Our
not there
inspections
long.
were like that.
You should carry, like, an extra bag with a couple eye holes, and so I got my mask on and I'm going to put something over my head. So you can't see me. I think it make them feel a little
I've
better.
been so cold recently that the mask actually works as a scarf. I'm
It
proud,
does,
proud
it's
to put mine
warm.
on. I get out of the car, I put mine on immediately. I'm constantly wearing mine. And the wife's like, you don't need to wear it right now. I'm like, it's cold.
So the interesting thing about this pandemic is we have new record low mortgage rates. I mean, the national average was 2.65, really on New Year's, and rates are going lower and lower.
And crypto's going higher and higher.
That is incredible, isn't it? I've been watching that like in complete awe.
It's funny, I just was, because I listen to books a lot when I'm in the car, and I was just listening to a book on Bitcoin, because I'm like, man, I probably should start jumping into this.
Well, I mean, that's I could literally probably talk about that for a whole hour, like my opinion on that, which we'll leave off.
I feel like Leo was probably an early adopter of Bitcoin.
He got the Dogecoin. Remember we talked about this?
Dogecoin.
Oh yeah, we did.
Did you buy
talk about
Bitcoin
that.
or no?
Never bought Bitcoin. I bought Ethereum. I bought Dogecoin.
Yeah.
But that's about it. I
I-
love my Dogecoin, even though it's.
I
pretty
knew
useless.
someone that
It's
like
worth
I don't probably
0.00 of a penny.
4 months ago
looks
we were
awesome.
no, it's actually going up. Did you see that? It's like
They
almost
all-
1
they
cent
all
now.
go up.
Okay. Anyway, so he put a crazy amount of money in Bitcoin. I can't imagine how much that is worth now. This was like 4 months ago.
Yeah, well, lucky it went up.
Even 4 months ago, it's not a bad return.
Well, actually,
So-
it probably doubled in the last. I haven't checked Bitcoin, but I know Ethereum's tripled in the past 4 months.
Yeah, they're ridiculous right now. Like Bitcoin, when I looked at it, it was 30.
It was 40 when I checked it this morning.
Oh my gosh, I didn't check it this morning. That's how it tells you how fast. $10,000 in literally like a day. I think I checked it a day or two ago.
Yeah.
I wish the rest of my portfolio was doing that.
I know, right? So 30-year fixed rates crazy down from last year. I mean, last year at this time we were 3.64. Now it's around 2.67. And again, that doesn't constitute the APR, right?
Yep.
This is just from the national numbers. And so the mortgage buyers, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, they report Thursday's average benchmarks that they're seeing is slipped down to 2.65. So this is the average they're seeing from the week before, which was 2.67. And a year ago, that was 3.64.
Wow.
So, and then 15-year, of course, is even better. That's down to 2.16. I can't believe we're only seeing 0.5% spread.
I know.
Between a 15 and a 30-year, but really there's nowhere to go.
Well, it's helping us out a lot.
Yeah. And I think, it's going to continue. We'll see.
Yeah.
I know a big driver, California, is trying to tax people 10 years after they leave the state. Hasn't actually passed yet, but I mean, if people think that's going to pass, they will start flooding, I think, the state in droves.
I just think that's the most unfair, ridiculous thing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's unbelievable.
Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about what your appraiser looks for. And if it's not Mr. Ray Hall, I guarantee it's probably still very similar things. So we'll be back in just a minute. If you want to get some information on rates or you'd like to connect with me, our off-air number is 813-377-2775. 377-2775.
Well, good morning. Welcome back. Leo Kane here, Barrel Engineering and Inspection, ringing in the new year, appraisal style, talking about mortgages that have never been so low, talking about insurance policies that have never been so high.
Nice contrast there. Nice contrast.
That is true. That is definitely true.
So, well, why don't you just jump in and chatter away with your tip? You might as well.
2-minute tip of the week.
Well, okay. Well, do you want me to ask my question?
Yeah, ask your question.
Okay, so I have a client, and this is what I was asking Leo off air, but so
you guys miss all the good stuff on the break. I'm just saying, like,
Right?
so watch our
Follow on
Facebook
Facebook.
Live, and you'll get to hear it.
But really, I had the client was asking me about because they're going to replace their windows, okay? And the person that's doing the windows says, well, instead of replacing them, we could put on a film. Costs about half as much, but she was wondering, if it's still got the opening protection credit, which is one of the wind mitigation credits.
So from what I understand, the films do about 4.5 missile rating, which is basically if you took a twig and threw it at your window at 4.5 pounds, your window should stop it. So what I would say, if you're going to do any film or any coating on your windows, ask for a copy of the paperwork. Ask them to show you in that paperwork where the specs say it meets the Florida wind codes, so you get the discount. Because, films have come a long way. They can make your glass stronger because it's a layer of protection, but just make sure you get the paperwork that shows up front. If you're going to get the 9 pounds of missile resistant, or the 4.5 pounds of missile resistant, or maybe it doesn't do any of that, and it's just going to break out solar.
You're getting a question from people on that, Adam. Are you seeing anything from the insurance carriers on that, or are they deferring to like the 4 points?
So they're all looking at the wind mitigation, and they're actually getting even tighter on the wind mitigation.
Okay.
So I've seen where even though the inspector lists, A, B, C, and D on there as far as what they have, if they missed one photo that should be on there, they're removing the credit. So they might even...
Do they let you know?
No, what happens is we get the call from an angry client, my insurance company is dropping me. That's how it starts.
Oh.
And then I've gone as far with certain carriers to email them, and I now know who some of the higher-ups are in those insurance companies.
Yeah, it's a regular fight for you.
So I CC these higher-ups in the company. I'm like, well, since your underwriter is blind, here's the picture by himself. I'll blow it up on 24 by 36 paper and mail it to you if you'd like.
Right.
Because we already have a report.
We had this conversation off air one time, and it was pretty heated.
Yeah, I mean, in our reports, we already take those roof-to-wall sections, which is the credit they love to just take away, and we have it blown up to half the piece of paper, as opposed to normally where we do 8 photos per paper. Here, we blow it up nice and big just so they can see it. But yeah, it's a very heated credit because it's the hardest part of the roof to get to. It's the most dangerous part of the roof to get to. So we're not going to get that clear, crisp from 4 inches away photo.
Yeah.
We have all these tools. We have camera on a stick. We have these torches we use up in the
Some of those areas are hard to get to, though.
Yeah.
Well, and your older homes, the smaller the attic space is, so it makes it almost impossible sometimes.
But they don't care. They just want to deny you as much as possible.
Well, I had one where they removed the funny enough, it was the opening protection credit because they didn't have pictures of the windows. Now, I think that's on the inspector.
That is on the inspector.
He should have the pictures of the windows, but it's like he checked A, but he didn't pick which one of A either, so they sent it back like 3 times.
I feel like we could do a whole show on that.
Probably.
What do you do if the house doesn't have an attic? I've been in quite a few houses.
Yeah,
That's
Say unknown or no attic access.
Yeah, there is.
My son has a house like that. There's no attic access.
There is a box to check for unknown or no attic access.
Okay.
So what you do is you refer back to the permit. If the roofing permit's after 2003, or actually it's March 2nd, 2003. If it's after that, you can say, well, we know it's been renailed, otherwise it wouldn't have passed the code inspection. So you get some of the credits.
Good.
The other thing you can do if it has no attic, If it's got an outside soffit,
Mm-hmm.
a piece of soffit can be removed, and you can check the trusses there.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Now, one more question since we're on the windows, and then we'll move on to the appraisal stuff. Can you tell me about, like, what about energy efficiency, right? Because that's part of the window replacement, right, is the energy efficiency.
Well, not for the insurance credit.
Well, I know, but I'm just asking, like, we're talking about the films, right? The window films being a replacement for your insurance credit as far as, like, projectile items not being able to come through. But with that being said, is there any, like, what's the equivalent for energy efficiency when you consider new windows?
I mean, there are ratings of reflectivity on how much it's going to reflect, plus how much it's going to make it dark. I mean, there are films out there that look clear but block a lot of the bright sun rays. And then there are films out there that actually make it look darker, like it's the tint, as they call it. So it's just a mix of the two. I mean, you can have a clear film that blocks a lot of the glare and protects you from missile impact, and you can't even tell it's there. But a lot of people, it's like, if they can't see it's darker, they don't know it's there. And the best thing you can do if you're looking to get your windows completely dark is to use plywood.
Yeah, whatever. Most people don't want it darker. I mean, I'll tell you, in my bathroom, we did do that. We put that tent film because not only could you see through it, but like the afternoon sun would just blare in there. So we tinted that whole window so that, not the top part where it's round, but we tinted everything else.
And that's why I like the passive solar. I know we've had that gentleman on the show numerous times that he can add natural light in from above through the passive solar system on your roof. That's really neat.
I put 2 of those in my house, by the way.
Do you like them?
Yeah.
You don't get any glare.
No. One of them actually has a dimmer thing, which is the remote's hard to operate. I had to call him to ask him how to figure it out because it just was not working. I was like, this thing broke. And then the other one is just open, but that's good with the way the house is laid out because it's in the kitchen, but it doesn't bother any of the bedrooms. So
I did a house recently. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen. You go into the bathroom. I walked in and I was like, wow, that's a very large, clear window for a bathroom. And this is in Davis Island, a very large home. She had a switch, and you hit the switch, and all of a sudden it would go frosted and white. I've never seen anything like it before.
I've seen that on on offices, like where you'll have like
That's pretty cool.
where it's all glass, but then if you want to have a private meeting,
You
I
press
can
it
imagine
down.
how much that window is.
I couldn't even tell you, but it was cool. I was like, man, I want that.
I mean, I can see that. You can roll an OLED screen over it, which would allow everything to go through. It'd be less than paper thin, and then you would turn it on, and it's projecting. You could probably do photos too, or other images, or is it just?
That I don't know. She just made it look white, and I was like, "That."
I've only seen the
coolest
tint.
thing I've
I've
seen.
only seen the like tint one.
So speaking of which, let's talk about what appraisers look for. And while we're on the topic of windows, is that impacting your appraisal report at all?
It could, because that is an energy efficient item, especially if you're getting energy efficient windows, and you look on the appraisal report, that is a line item that's available.
Did that film bring a new spin to your appraisal?
No, it really didn't.
Would you even know to look for that? Like,
I wouldn't have.
See, so they would have to be there to be like, hey, don't forget about this.
In fact, you would walk in and you would think, is there a functional obsolescence here? Because can you use your shower when your neighbor can see in this window?
Right, like, yeah.
I mean, maybe your guys are close, I don't know, but that's still just not a normal thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, something like that, we really can't put a value on it because no one's putting in the MLS, this house has a window that automatically frosts itself.
And even if they did, honestly, Ray, you know as much as I do, it's garbage in, garbage out. So you can't even search by stuff like that because the listings aren't complete.
God, I would think, like, if that was my house, I'd put a little, if I was selling, I'd put a little sign right there that says, touch, like, turn this.
Right,
exactly.
The cool
So they
features
can, like,
we
walk
do.
through and be like, okay, I'm not missing this awesome thing and, taking away from...
Right, but you have to be careful
You
because
better leave it frosted.
if you're the only person in that neighborhood with that cool feature, there's really
Overimproved.
Overimproved is exactly.
Well, I
right.
wasn't talking about for value. I would think that almost just kind of makes it like it should be anyways, right? It's just kind of like a nice...
Yeah, I mean,
like it should be frosted anyways, so your neighbors don't see you. So it's kind of...
It's one of those things I tell people, get it because you want it.
Yeah.
Don't get it because you're
Right.
thinking there's going to be a value, because most likely it's not
Right.
going to happen.
Well, enjoy it. Use it, right? That's the point.
Exactly.
So what do appraisers checking when they're at the property? That's a question we get a lot. What is the appraiser checking? How long is he going to be here?
Great question. We're checking for condition and quality of construction is the two big things we're looking at. So we're going in, when I see the flooring, do you have nice wood or the luxury vinyl, or do you have the 99 cent a square foot laminate flooring? And that's what comes into quality of construction. We're looking at that condition.
No, I have a
Yeah,
question.
you can always tell he's got like
Yeah,
something
I
30
didn't want to catch it till
That's
after
okay,
your
that's
sentence.
okay.
But so I was thinking, because you talked about, okay, well, you go and it's near the water treatment facility.
Right.
That's your neighborhood. Do things like the airport or living near a train,
That's called
Oh yeah,
railroad-
the
That's-
train, absolutely.
That's actually called external obsolescence.
Okay.
So the way the way we do that in the appraisal is I find a house that has that same.
You can hear the train in the
You're
backyard.
right. For instance,
Still in that neighborhood, right?
there's a whole row of houses all down Tampa that are in the flight path when the planes are landing north to south in TIA. So they all, in fact, at one point, I believe the airport upgraded a lot of their windows, a certain mileage from the airport to keep the sound out. But they all have that obsolescence, and I have to find the comp with that obsolescence
Oh, wow.
to show the marketability and how it impacts it.
There's some neighborhoods in Pasco too with those small airports that fly right over.
Yep.
And-
And the lenders are really getting strict on that now.
Oh,
So-
didn't know that one.
Good to know. See,
Yeah,
good question, huh?
I mean, well, it makes sense because
Yeah.
when I meet sellers and they're like, yeah, I want to make sure there's no airplane noise. Like, we get that.
Right. I did an appraisal out in Plant City, and they were asking me about the airport in Zephyr Hills.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, no, that's 20 miles away.
All right, if you got appraisal questions, now's the time to call
Yes,
in
please.
or text those. 813-377-2775. Text work great. 813-377-2775. We have the appraiser expert in the studio this morning, Mr. Ray Hall. So text your questions and we'll get to them. 813-377-2775. Back in a second.
Welcome back. This is Tampa Home Talk. I'm Adam Talley with Talley Insurance. We got Leah, we got Katrina, and of course we have Ray Hall, Ray the appraiser. Welcome
He's
back.
the star of the 8 o'clock hour.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Love being
Ray,
here.
how much is my house worth?
It's whatever your Zestimate says.
Yeah, that's what it is. Based on it.
Less than what you think, but more than somebody wants to pay.
That's a great answer.
that's a great
Are you
answer, yeah.
trained to answer that way? That's pretty good.
That's what we used to joke about. That's market value when the buyer sells for less than they want, and the buyer buys it for more than they wanted to pay, but the seller sold it for less than they wanted to sell it for.
Well, I mean, let's talk about that because on the break you were saying how as soon as you get there, people are like, "So what's it worth?"
Yeah.
And the truth is, you don't know at that moment.
And that's the funny thing, a lot of people, because we're trained as an appraiser. So we know to get that value, we have to do a whole bunch of analysis and a whole bunch of reading. I've got to go through the MLS. I've got to look at the pictures and make sure the MLS was correct with how they described it and things like that. So we kind of train ourselves to make it a more difficult task to say, what's the value? A lot of people just walk through their house and say, well, Joe across the street sold his for $250.
Yeah.
His is a little bigger, so mine's $245.
Yeah, but their house is 3,500 square feet and yours is 2,000.
Exactly. It's that,
It's not even
or-
going to make a comp.
Right, or they gutted it and they completely renovated it, and then, or I've had one where they said, "Well, my house must be worth about $180,000 because we had a sale that was $180,000. It was 2 blocks away." Well, that sale never existed. It wasn't there. No public records, no MLS, so it was just based on hearsay
Yeah.
in this little mobile home park, and I had to squash their dreams of that
Was
big
fun, I'm
value.
sure. So let's talk about some things that negatively affect the home's appraisal. And you brought up a great point, Adam. During the break, when we were talking about that, or was that last segment?
No, that
The
was last
trains and-
segment.
okay.
Yeah, that was the trains.
It kind of rolls together. So I'm
Yeah.
like, what did we talk about on air?
That is, so you've got your external obsolescence or your external impacts, which would be a train rail or the airport. Sometimes people think power lines, but I see a lot less impact from the power lines as they used to be because you do have a nice pasture behind you that nobody can build on,
Yeah.
probably ever. So you're always going to have that privacy, and I think,
In a lovely hum.
yeah, in a lovely home.
Hum. The white noise.
The white noise.
Honestly, I did a couple in Tampa Palms and didn't hear the hum. But yet I was down by Sulphur Springs yesterday, and just the regular power line was humming to the point where I got out of the front yard because it was really kind of loud. So
Do golf courses add value? Detract? What do you see?
Well, they're
not-
looking for golf course properties.
most of the time, the golf course front homes do have are more valuable than the off golf course. And those are the external things. Now, the things inside the house that are going to negatively impact are older homes with no updating, damage to the house. A lot of times, if you have an old water stain, get the kills, paint over it, cover it up. Just keep up with the maintenance of your house. I did one house in, it was a golf course community. It was on the golf course, huge house, built in the early 90s. Nothing had been changed since the early 90s. Not one item.
You could tell you walk in, it's like all
the appliances
either
were
purple, black, green.
It was like green carpet,
Yeah.
white appliances. And after the appraisal, he was angry. I mean, he called me up and he was yelling at me.
Well, they think their house is updated and new and awesome.
And no, he knew it. And he said, well, why isn't my house worth what those are over there? I said, well, those are completely renovated with new kitchens, new baths, and this and that. And his argument was, so I have to change things that aren't fixed to get value in my house? I said, well, in your neighborhood, yes, you do.
Buyers will pay for that.
I said-
That's what determines the value.
I said, unfortunately, your house was outdated, and my comps show that
Probably really
impacts the
made him
value.
mad when he told him his house was
Your
outdated.
house is outdated.
I probably didn't word it like that, but it was, and it
It's
impacts
not
value.
as quite as pretty as the other ones. So it's like saying your kid is not as pretty as the other ones, right? It's kind of like what they
Sort
feel.
of, yeah.
I would love to be in a house that I don't really have to update or make changes to for that's almost 29 years.
Yeah.
I would love that. That would be awesome. That's all that money that they saved.
Well, you
Your,
better
your
pick
house, I
some-
feel it's like, 29 days in between something
29
needing to
days,
be
if I'm
updated?
lucky.
Yeah.
You've got to pick some timeless things, really, to not be outdated, which is hard to do,
Yeah.
but it's doable.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how someone should prepare for the appraisal, because we get that a lot.
Great
and then
question.
sometimes people are like, oh, my house is messy. I can't have the appraiser in. Are you guys looking past that? I mean, I tell people make it perfect for the appraiser,
Yeah.
because it needs to be as perfect for them as it does for the buyer, in my opinion.
Right, and I'm so glad you asked that question. Prepare for the appraiser. Yes, straighten up, because remember, we're people. You can work on the appraiser's psyche,
And we have to take pictures.
and we have to take pictures. But if you have nice flooring, do you really want clothes all over the flooring? So I'm just seeing bits and pieces of it instead of seeing how it presents.
It's the flooring protector, though.
Well, it's the I can't see it, so and that's the problem. Is a lot of times people don't treat the appraiser like you're trying to sell them your house.
Yes, because you are, really.
Right. A big thing too, if you have pets, especially if you have quite a few cats, do something to make the house smell nice.
Oh, yeah.
Bake
yeah.
something, light a bunch of candles, do something, make the house smell.
Isn't that a red flag for you if you got a whole bunch of candles lit in the house?
No, I mean, but what it does is it doesn't distract me. Because I did a house. I always tell everybody when they're worried about how messy their house is, I said, well, you're not the cat lady hoarder I did, who probably had 200 cats in a 3,500 square foot house and stuff
Okay.
top to
I'm
bottom.
just going to ask this right now. Where did you adjust for that on the appraisal, and do you know roughly how much it was?
It's really
Catstuff.com.
Condition?
it's a
Cats the
condition
musical.
adjustment.
Yeah.
And it's
How much? 20 cats. How much of an adjustment was that?
this is a while ago. I don't remember.
200 cats.
200
Oh,
cats.
200. Oh, yeah,
like
that's
that.
right. That's
Between 1 and 200 cats.
It's like the movie Secret Life of Pets 2.
No rats in that house, though.
No,
Rat-free.
no rats.
No rats.
But
no
Are you
lizards,
allergic to cats?
No bugs.
no, I'm not allergic, but there were things in this house that I never would like to experience again.
I bet the smell was
Horrific.
Oh, gosh.
Homemade cat food sitting out on the counter, just it was bad.
Who lives like
Cat
What
people.
is homemade? I know what homemade dog food has in it, but the cats eat almost entire protein, so you don't
Rice
really want.
and fish.
Oh, God. No wonder it was
They
so
don't eat
bad.
rice,
Oh.
I can give you the address if you'd like to go discuss it with her, but
I thought she sold it.
All right,
no,
so
just a refund.
let's flip this conversation and talk about what adds value. We want to get you on the
well, actually, if you
positive
don't mind,
side.
I'd like to go back to what to do to prepare for the appraisal
Okay,
because a lot of
yes.
people mess this up.
Okay.
Okay, so we got scented candles, a
Scented
bubble bath,
candles, make the house
bottle
smell
of wine,
nice.
some cheese.
Cookies.
But the big thing
It's
is,
not Santa Claus.
Everybody loves cookies, all right?
no, the big thing I always tell people, if you have something about the house that's special that you want the appraiser to know, list it before we get there. Don't tell me when I walk in the door. And when the appraiser comes to your house, don't follow him. Do not follow the appraiser. And that's what happens to us all the time is we have someone who wants to tour guide us through the house. I know what the bathroom is. It's got a toilet. It's got a sink. I know what the room that is. I really don't need, don't tell me. I know where the bedroom is. That's fine. Don't tell me. But people hover over the appraiser, and they're telling us everything they want to do to the house. None of that matters.
Yeah, that's not what you want to say to
None of
the
that
appraiser
matters.
at all.
Also, don't come to the door and say, "Oh, he's friendly." Just put him in a crate.
Yeah.
No, I always say if they're friendly, just leave them out because then they stop barking.
So I'll tell you how we prepare for you guys when you do an appraisal on one of our listings. Not only do we have comps that we use to support the list price that we put it at, but we also will have a list of updates and any improvements and things that we know will affect the value. So we like to put that list together for you
Right.
with the comps so that you have that information.
And that's the best way to do it. I always some appraisers are I don't want their comps. Those aren't going to be mine. This and that. I always say give me the comps. Either I can see where you came from.
You either use them or you won't, but at least you know what I use to determine the price when we listed it.
Exactly.
You're not like, where'd you get this pie in the sky number?
And I've had it where maybe it was just outside my market area, but it was still a good comp, or maybe it was just over the 6-month mark, so maybe I didn't see
Or
it.
you missed up. Yeah, and that could happen, right? When we're
Right.
looking at the comps to list it, and then you're coming in, that could be 60 days or more longer.
It could.
So those numbers are certainly going to be
Right.
different, and the
So
homes may be
it's
different.
right. So it's good to know where your head's at. I always ask people in a refinance, what do you think the house is worth? And most of the time, it's Zillow says this or that or the other, and that's
So
fine.
biggest return on investment, what should somebody do to add the most value with the least amount of money?
The least amount of money. I don't know. Kitchens and baths
They
always.
can do minor
trees.
updates that look great.
Landscaping and trees, probably.
Do some painting.
It
Paint
gets,
the house.
it's
Make
a
it look
big
fresh.
deal, yeah.
Freshen it
Yeah.
up. And when you're painting, do your baseboards. Make sure
Yes.
the baseboards look nice, because there's nothing that's nicer
And
than
if
when
you have pets and it smells, please don't paint over them without cleaning them. That drives me insane. You know how many times I've seen that? Oh,
I like I said, I've seen things that just haunt my dreams. But no, paint the house, freshen it up, or maybe you don't want to do the whole new kitchen. Maybe just get new countertops. And if you don't want to do the granite or the quartz, and if that's not common in your neighborhood, don't do that. But get a nice laminate, something that looks, higher end.
well, I'll tell you, we were talking about people coming in saying, do you know the value? Do you know the value? And I'll tell you on listings as well. I had one in North Tampa yesterday or the day before, and literally I already know what neighborhoods, when I pull the comps, there's going to be $100,000 spread or more,
Right.
in the valuations. So they can tell me stuff, but normally on those I'm going to wait to even give my own opinion or range of value until I see the house.
Exactly.
Why would there be that big of a discrepancy? Just sizes or?
Not sizes, because I'm always pulling within 20% of the square footage. I go
Okay.
up and down, based on whatever the square footage is. I pull a range. I usually I pull 20% and then I round down and I round up. So I've got a nice little range. I pull within a 1 mile radius, trying to look within that community first, which is
Right.
what appraisers
Right.
do. And then the thing about it is, especially like in those older communities where it's not really like a subdivision or whatever, and stuff was built in the 50s or 60s or even older, right? Like Seminole Heights, some of those areas. That's why you have $100,000 spread, because you'll have houses like Leo's that are updated every 30 days,
Exactly.
and then you have these bungalows that haven't been updated since they were built, right?
Right, and then you have the
Envy
different
them.
bungalows too, because you have the nice bungalows with the front porch and the posts, and people pay more for that.
Yeah.
Then you have kind of the basic house, the cookie cutter that was built maybe a few years after it, that people are paying less money for. So you really do have a spread in those neighborhoods, and the
Yeah.
not renovated compared to the renovated are
Well, it's over $100,000
Now,
spread.
yeah.
Now, and you're
Absolutely.
doing comparable ages too, right?
yes.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
like in Seminole Heights, for example, like a lot of bungalows from the 20s, 30s, 40s,
So-
but also a lot of bungalows from 2015.
Let me add to
you know?
that.
Right, exactly.
So usually when I do the search, I'm not putting the year in initially, but then when I go in and then I see that I've got like a 1930s bungalow, and then there's something built in 20 whatever,
18,
I'm
yeah.
definitely taking those out.
Yeah.
Right, and I was doing an appraisal for, it was an investor, they were refinancing or whatever, and they compared their renovated bungalow to a brand new bungalow style house, and it was apples and oranges. It was completely
Yeah.
different.
Outside of that scenario, for the most part, I'm really not taking too much consideration the age, unless there's a significant architectural design and appeal that's totally different.
Yeah.
Would you agree to that?
Well, yeah, sometimes-
Like in the 90s, like late 90s, the footprint really started changing
Yeah.
in the way homes were built compared to before that.
Right, and again, sometimes you do have to use that new house for some reason, because maybe none of the bungalows are in the same condition.
Yeah.
So I've got to take that, but I've got to adjust for that age as well.
Makes sense.
All right, so when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about appraisals, valuations, and one of the questions we got is, does the appraiser know what the selling price is? And we already chatted about this. We'll chat about it a little bit more when we get back. So our out there number is 813-377-2775, 377-2775. Are you...
Well, good morning. Welcome back. Leo Kane here, Barrel Engineering and Inspection, rounding out the top of the hour for January 8th, 2021.
You can tell we're a little rusty at being in studio. We're all sitting here looking at each other. Who's going to open us up here?
I'll take it. I'll always take it. I got to get this in before Adam leaves.
Hey, man. Love it.
No Rusty here. You've been oiled and you're ready to squeak on out.
Yeah, I'm surprised we get him for an hour. Like, he's going to be like, I'm too busy. I'm calling in my insurance tip of the week.
Man. I almost did, but I missed you guys, so I had to come in.
So do we sort of glossed over the insurance tip, but, you know.
Well, the insurance tip was an insurance. It was more of an inspection question, really.
It was
but it was a good tip. It was about credits.
It was about credits. And the important thing about credits is before you let a contractor sell you anything, make sure you get proof of your end result. Because there's been too many times where a client says, I need X, and the contractor comes in and is selling Y, and they don't line up.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that you're going to get, at the end of the day, if you're looking to get an insurance credit to save $800 a year for 5 years on your insurance, make sure the money you're about to spend actually gets you that.
Yeah.
Do appraisers look for code violations at all, or it's not something you guys usually look for?
Not
Is
really in our scope of work. A little bit, yes, with FHA.
If it looks like it might have code violations, you probably look for
Don't
them.
you guys have to follow the HUD Handbook 4000.1 minimum property standards, though?
For FHA,
They
yes.
do.
Yes. And there's specific standards for appraisals.
Right.
And, basically what it says is anything that's a possible safety violation, I have to report it. Like if you have a deck, it's 8 feet high, and there's no railing.
There's
You
no
know, no
insurance
go.
either, so
And-
Right.
And honestly, I'm usually about anything above about 36 inches. If there's no railing, I won't. I'll have to do it as
for insurance, it's
subject
3
to.
steps.
Or if they're too wide.
It's actually supposed to be 30 inches. If it's above 30 inches, you're supposed to have guardrails above that top deck between 34 and 38 inches, according to the new Florida Building Code.
And
Okay.
the
Well,
slats
thank you.
too, right? The slats, if they're too far
wide,
apart, that's
yeah.
a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, the handbook doesn't really get too much into that. Where the handbook actually gets specific, oddly enough, is manufactured houses.
Yes.
That's a big deal, yeah.
Yeah,
it's
because a lot of
car.
people try to cut costs on the skirting, and they put lattice, and that's not allowable by FHA or HUD.
Which is Handbook 15-C, in case you're curious.
Did you memorize the handbook?
The things you use on a daily basis, you tend to know exactly where they're at.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they're actually pretty strict on the manufactured homes.
Well, it's interesting. You talk about the minimum standards, but I know I had this one house before. It was my seller, and the buyer was getting a VA loan. And this appraiser, which is sent by the VA, a little bit different than FHA, right?
Yeah,
So that
they're
random
pretty
selection.
strict. They're looking
Ye-
for
Very
right.
strict.
But I also know like what the guidelines are and what's allowed and what's not.
Right.
And this guy nitpicked everything. Like even the fence that had like some broken little like little holes in the thing. It was an old fence. It needed to probably be taken down.
Right.
But I think he gave it maybe $500 on the value. And I'm like, yeah, you're picking on the fence, which is really, you gave it a $500 valuation. So even if you remove it from the report, it should be a mute issue.
Yeah.
So we had this guy back, I think 2 or 3 times.
Oh, wow.
And he still kept nitpicking every little thing. Like it was just, he was just being overly picky to the point to where I called the VA. So I called the Department of Veterans Affairs. I complained and I said, I don't want this appraiser back on the property. You're going to have to send another appraiser to do the follow-up to make sure it meets the minimum standards. Because for whatever reason, this guy keeps failing it, and it's up to par.
Yeah, now I'm not a VA appraiser. Actually, I need to apply for that. But it's funny. It's a very strict process, but yet when I do appraisal reviews, I'd say 2 of the worst ones I've ever seen were VA appraisals.
Yeah.
And I was really surprised because things that a normal lender would never allow, this appraiser did.
Well, part of it too is there's no competition really for the appraisers,
No.
because those appraisers get on and literally they don't leave the list till someone dies, right?
Yep.
Or retires, and then essentially it's not like a regular market where they put an order out there and then you gotta grab it or someone else is gonna get it.
Right.
So it's kind of like a bidding process, right, for appraisers. It's not like that with the VA. They randomly assign someone, and then they don't have a whole lot of people checking their work.
No, they don't. Like I said, now when you see your appraisals, usually you've got some comps that were adjusted down, some comps that were adjusted up. Big red flag is when you're in a development and everything is adjusted upwards. Big red flag. And I saw a VA appraisal that's exactly what he did. And his value did come out, but it was just his appraisal process was not.
He was pulling that value.
Oh yeah, he was. Luckily, there was other sales, but in my appraisals, I usually have a minimum of about 5 comparables. He had the minimum of 3, all adjusted upwards, all inferior to his property, and that's really not helping the homeowner either, because sometimes when you take that superior and you're working your adjustments and you're doing your regression analysis and you adjust it down, it could show that house maybe is worth a little bit more because people are paying higher for the larger houses or the better conditioned houses and things like that. So you don't want 3, bad houses and just adjust upwards to yours and just guess that value.
That reminds me of the time I used to laugh. This is mid-2000s when the appraisers are like, didn't matter what the house on the market was for, your appraiser asked for that number so he could make his magic happen and the appraisal would equal it. It's just like, I hated that time period.
I guess my relationships with my appraisers were always different, because we never asked them to do anything that, that would put their license in jeopardy or really make that appraisal come back on them. And we were picking the appraiser, back then.
Right.
But I think we had a really good relationship with our appraisers and our underwriters. I think part of that is, you can say, the magic or whatever, but if your underwriter doesn't like the appraisal, it's going to come back anyway,
Yep,
which I let a lot more stuff slide.
Mid-2000s, though?
Let a lot of stuff slide. They shouldn't have.
Yeah, because I started in 2004, so I was a trainee back then, and I don't remember ever being pushed for a value, maybe once or twice, but it was always, we estimate the value at, $252,650, and it's like, gee, what do you think the 80% LTV comes out to? So that's the kind of stuff we got.
We don't see many appraisers with those weird numbers. Like, we just don't see that.
No, you never see that.
No.
But they were so specific in their estimated value that, it was kind of their way of saying that's what we needed at.
Yeah.
And, we really don't see that anymore.
So have you seen anything wild? Like, 2020 was a pretty crazy year, right? Have you seen anything bizarre from
me dressed in a PPE outfit? That was pretty bizarre.
That's it. I meant like property-wise, because you see so many different things.
I've seen some really beautiful houses this year. I saw one 1920. In fact, they had that cool window we were talking about. It was a 1925 house renovated to brand new, and it looked gorgeous, looked amazing.
What was the value on that?
I can't tell you that.
Oh,
He probably doesn't remember anyway. He looks at so many appraisal
he
reports.
remembers that one. That was his
You
favorite.
don't?
I honestly don't remember the value on it.
It doesn't stick. All right, this is Tampa Home Talk. Ray, thanks for joining us.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having
We're
me.
already up with hour number. Yeah,
You
one.
got this.
That's it.
You got this.
We'll be back for hour number 2 with Lindsay Ruiz-Bash. She's our attorney, talking about the best options for real estate and a divorce. Ooh.
Didn't you write a book about that?
Well, actually, yeah, we got to do the whole book thing. Let's see what the next hour looks like, because we haven't done the whole speed rate thing.
You've got a book right
All right,
here.
stick around. Hour number 2 is going to get fun. Back in a minute.